You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, huge shout out to our sponsors. The Oklahoma Hall of Fame has been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my two pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. So go to thedoghouseokc.com and follow them on Instagram at thedoghouseokc, and hopefully our pups will run into each other.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to an episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Excited to be at the Hobby Lobby HQ with the one and only Mr. David Green. Thanks so much for inviting us down here today.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
I love this chair. I know you mentioned coming in earlier. You said I could fall asleep in this chair. I like these wing-back kind of Chesterfield-looking chairs.
Yeah.
They're so comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had a lot of great times and good memories and good experiences in this office.
Exactly.
That we're in today.
Exactly.
It's a pretty big boardroom, whether it's family or just chatting to Pamela, who's been here for 25 years. That's not it's not uncommon to listen to some of your employees that have been here for a very long time. Very well known for paying them very well and having great employee services. But today, I'm going to ask you to talk about yourself, which maybe you don't like to do as much because you like to share the light on everybody else and talk about your purpose, which we'll get into. But listening to some of the episodes and interviews you've done, reading some of the books that you have written, plenty of notes here. And so, first of all, I just, for people who maybe they know Hobby Lobby, but they don't know yourself, what is your, who I am, what I do, and why I do it?
Yeah. We're having a lot of fun with Hobby Lobby. Of course, we started in 1971. Mm-hmm. We borrowed $600 to get started, and now we have over 1,100 stores. And so we're having a lot of fun and we say we do it for a purpose, and that the bottom line, we do Hobby Lobby to tell people about Jesus. So not that we have more money personally, because I make less than I did 25 years ago if you look at the cost of living. So that's not what's important to us. So we think we have a purpose for growing, and we know we have a purpose for growing. And so that's what excites us, and that's what causes us to want to have more stores. We have 1,100 stores, and we want 12 and 15, but we will not see those revenues. We will see more ministries that we're able to be involved with, and that's what keeps us coming to work every day and excites us to come to work every day. Yeah. So I work 6 days a week, and I love it. I love what I do, and I didn't work that much when we had children at home, but I tell Barbara if she feels like a widow, let me know, and I'll come home. But she's always got something going, so that works out real good.
Yeah. So grew up in Kansas, born in Kansas, but you moved around a lot because mom and dad, dad's a pastor, moved around a lot. You're the second eldest of five.
Right.
And so Altus was kind of where you sort of set in high school, set your roots, and you get your first job, and well, not first job, but first job in retail.
Right.
And there's some great stories about your first boss who kind of took you under his wing a little bit.
Yeah, a guy we call T. Texas Tyler, so he kind of helped me along, and I was a junior and senior when I was working at the local Five and Dime in Altus, Oklahoma. And, of course, I tell people that's where I found two loves. I found the love for what I wanted to do because I loved retail, and then I found my wife there, So someone told me she was interested in me, and they told me she was, and vice versa. But I'm not real sure the lady wasn't just lying. But anyway, it got us together. Next month, we will be married 65 years. So
okay. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Where was your first date?
Well, our first date, I probably was down to get a 5-cent ice cream cone and a 5-cent Coke, and that was probably it, at the local whatever 7-Eleven, whatever it was in those days and times. So, but yeah, it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah. So you're in the store, you have a great boss, you're 14, 15, 16 years old in high school. Dad's a pastor, mom's doing her thing, you're in Altus, Oklahoma. What are the key memories from that time? If you were to go back there today, what's the smell? What's the thing that takes you there? What do you see when I ask you that question?
Well, what I see probably more than anything is the fact that I hated school, I've always hated school.
Yeah.
So I don't suggest that for anybody, but that was me, because we didn't have a lot. And so growing up, my dad pastored churches never over 100. And so with 6 kids most of us worked just to help the family out, and that's what I did. When I was working, I was buying furniture for the home, things of that nature, because I was more working for the family than it was for myself. And so that's kind of how I saw it, but I just saw it as that I loved to be at work. I took distributive education, so in my junior and senior year, you took English, math, distributive education, and work. And work you got, I thought that was the neatest thing in the world, to get credit for working and making money. So in my junior and senior years, that's what I did: math, English, distributive education, and work. And so I was out about 10:30, I think. I was out of school down at the local 5 and dime store. So that was what I loved to do, and I was excited to be able to get out of school and go to work.
What was it that kind of lit you up about merchandising, managing a store, setting things up on shelves? Because that seems to be your superpower.
When I was a junior and senior, and I'd go to the local 5 and dime, and they would have me set up the window displays, and then they would also have me, just merchandise the stores on end counters and how we market things, and I would see how the things would double in sales just by how you presented the product, and I know that just excited me. And I think the other thing that excited me was just getting a salary. Just that was incredible, because getting just a little bit of money where you came from nothing, was exciting. So that's what excited me, was just seeing what you bought and how you displayed it, and all that made all the difference in the world. And of course, I've been doing that for 50 some years here, just trying to figure this thing out. And you never really figure it out. You just always try to get better at what you're doing.
It sounds like the key is buying at the right price to help a lot of other things down the line. Yeah,
for me, I spend 80% of my time buying and selling merchandise and working with the buyers, because we have a department that does all of the accounting and IT department, and there's not departments that I really love, although, by the way, they're very, very important, and we have very, very good people there. But we make money by buying and selling merchandise, and I realize that what we make money at, you have to have a warehouse, you have to have all of these different things to be a good retailer, and they're all real important. But what's fun and where you make your money is buying and selling your merchandise. So I spend 80% of my time with all the buyers. We have 120 buyers, and buyers help for the buyers. So that's what we have in buying about 80,000 items that we buy every year. So we work real hard at being good merchants.
From that time with T-Texas Tyler, do you remember a product that you first, or a window display that you first was like, this is one of my big wins?
Well, I can tell you about some of the things that weren't big wins, like putting rabbits that are hollow mold chocolate in the window and them melting. So I can't tell you necessarily about big wins, but I think I was pretty good at it. And because we would go to store openings, and they would always have me trimming the windows. So that was what I would do. Because in my day, back in the dime store days, it would be windows. You would walk by the store and there would be displays. We don't do that today, at least Hobby Lobby, but that was one of the jobs that I did. I know that I must have been good at it, because they always asked me to do it, but I do know that you don't put chocolate empty rabbits in the window. They'll just melt on you every
Yeah.
time.
Were you just doing the displays behind the window, or were you painting on the windows and putting things up and being kind of
Well,
artistic that way
there
as
would be
well?
like 2 or 3 feet that's there for the windows. The store was built to have windows and displays, and then I would find things in the store to be creative, and so I enjoyed doing that.
How has that changed in today's world? I guess with
Today they're just big windows. There's
Yeah.
not like a 2-foot.
Right.
We'd actually go inside there and shut the doors, and it would be its own space. But none of our stores would have that. They
Yeah.
would just have just a big glass window plate.
Your window shopping now is your phone, it's your social media,
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
It's your advertising dollars that are going there
Right.
versus and then, like I said, obviously you still have your end caps and your in display,
Right,
but
right.
and no one walks anymore, right? No
Yeah.
one's walking the downtowns,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
no.
So one of the great stories I think came from your Voices of Oklahoma interview, which is a while back, I listened to last night, was talking about buying your first car, the first the convertible that you bought.
Yeah. When I first bought my first car, it was just the exterior of what it looked like. It was a convertible. It was nice, but it was yellow, and it was definitely a lemon. It was just a really, really bad car.
Yeah.
So, hopefully I've learned a little bit about that. And so, yeah, that was my first car. And I've graduated a little bit from that.
What drew you to a convertible yellow?
I don't know. It looked pretty cool, and
Yeah.
it looked like I would be a pretty cool guy with that convertible, So, that was pretty hot back when I was a teenager. So,
Do you still have, over the years, you have all these stores and great employees, family, great values. Is vehicles and cars your vice to keep you to reward yourself?
I have good cars, but I don't think they're that important to
Okay.
me. What's important to me is that they run and they don't give me a problem. So I don't think it's something that I'm really into
Okay.
cars.
Gotcha.
So I have nice cars. Yeah, I have one that's over 10 years old, but it still runs well, a Hummer.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
so it works well in the wintertime. And
Yeah.
so, but I don't think that I'm into that much cars. I don't read. I've got a son-in-law that he knows everything about every car, and he loves cars. And that's good, but we all have something different.
Yeah.
I just love to come to work and try to make it better, and that's what excites me. And,
Yeah. Where do you get that from? Do you get that from mom's side or dad's side?
my mom and dad I don't know where I got it from, I just know that when I was 16, 17, working at the local Five and Dimes, I just took to retail, I just loved it. And I still today, I just love coming to work. So it's exciting to have something you love to do. I would rather, I don't golf, and if someone likes to golf, God bless you, that's what you like to do. So I don't have anything that would be against that. We all have something different. And for me, the greatest and the most exciting things for me to do is come to work and see how that I can take something and make it better.
Yeah.
Because you never end. There's never an end, It's like yesterday it was about my thread rack, I said, I don't know how many colors we have, but we may have 30 colors of green. I said, do we need 30 colors of green, if I don't have some? And so I found 37 of the colors that if I didn't have, they sell low enough that I can have more white on the shelf. So that was one of my big things yesterday. But there's never an end to that, There's just never an end to making whatever you have better.
Yeah. And are you at 70,000 products or more in each store now?
There's with our seasonal, I would say it's between 70 and 80.
Okay.
There's 50,000 in the warehouse, which we carry 24/7.
Okay.
But counting the seasonal, all the seasons, so
Yeah.
it's between 70 and
And all of those have a subcategory, and like you said, a green and white.
Right,
So
right.
like you said, you're right.
Right.
It never ends.
Well, the other thing that we find out too, because out there I've got a bunch of signs up that are like, the letters are about 4 foot. No, no, no. They're about, I'm sorry. I've been talking about getting them 4 because someone hasn't been reading them. You know, they're about 2 feet. I'm thinking about putting them 4 feet in neon, you know. Mm-hmm. And one of it says, keep it simple. And that's what we try to do. We try to keep this simple. One of them says, close counts. This isn't brain surgery, just getting close. Mm-hmm. One of them says, too many choices are harmful to business. One of them says, ask God for direction. Mm-hmm. And the other one says, study, study, study. So those are all in 2-foot letters. Mm-hmm. And I think you can almost run life that way. You know, sometimes we just have too many choices and it's harmful to business. Yeah. When you go overseas, which we do, you could find, for instance, easily you could find over 1,000 Santa Clauses. Okay, you got them from 3-inch to 36-inch. You got them with 5 or 6 different kinds of materials. Yeah. And you can really come in and you could buy 300 of them. And maybe you need 36, you know. Mm. So that's the kind of thing that we work on, is trying not to have too many choices. Mm-hmm. In the warehouse a few years ago, we had 70,000 items. And now we have 50, and we do more business with 50 than 70. Because sometimes we just took the choices down, because all you're doing is confusing the customer, and you have more room for your better sellers. So that's, you know, that's good information, but I'm not going to charge you for it.
Thank you.
Should.
That's the real reason for the podcast, is because I'm selfishly learning everything from my guests.
You're going to start a retail store that's going to be crafts. And by the way, there's only 2 of us left, you know, ourselves and Michael's. Joanne's.
Has there ever been a thought to purchase the competition?
No.
Or have they also tried to make an offer for you?
No.
No?
Yeah, we've had to make offer for us, but we weren't interested.
That's not your end game.
Yeah.
No. Back to, you know, your decision making and decision fatigue is a real thing. It's a real thing in CEOs and leaders, but it's also a real thing in, like I said, your customers as well. Is there anything, you know, there's so many things out there that the CEOs do on the daily, whether it's a morning routine, whether it's wearing the same shirt the whole week, you know, the same type of shirt, to limit their decisions so that they can focus on the core things, like I said, talking about which Santa to choose and all, you know, diving into the data. Is there anything that you do to limit your decision fatigue so that you can focus on what matters?
You know, because we have 120 people buying merchandise, and but there's only about 17 of them that are the boss of, they have a group, like you have a group that buys crafts. So I will work with the person that's in charge of crafts, even though there might be 6 or 8 people. But because there's so much things moving all the time, this is a moving target. You know, what was good yesterday may not be good today. I don't think I've ever found myself where I was, you know, had fatigue and just doing that. So it's just, for me, it's so much fun to, whatever it is, it's doing well, but I want it to do better. And so you always have that, you can do it better, you know. It's not broke. Some people say if it's not broke, don't fix it. But I just say if it's not broke, just make it better. So that's a different attitude, because you can always make it better. Almost always you can make it better. And so you leave something alone for 6 months, but then you got to go back. And not that we don't have good people that do that on their own, because that's what you want. You really want them to do it on their own. But you just want to come alongside them and work with them. And I try to think about the tools you have in your toolbox, and one of them is authority. I try never to use that tool. You know, I try only to come along, and I want someone to go with me left or right because we're together going left or right. Sometimes we're going right, we need to go left. But I want them to, I want to sell my ideas, or I want to listen to them. So hopefully I'm listening to them and we come along and we're doing this together. And I think that happens 95% of the time. The other 5, it's like, hey, let's try it this way. And if it's wrong, we'll go another way. So I think that's one of the mistakes you make as a CEO. Sometimes I have the authority. Well, don't use it, you know, because it's not real good to use that particular tool. And I try, not that I'm perfect at it, but I try not to use that tool in working with my people.
What drives your passion for better, for perfecting, endless pursuit to improve? Where does that come from?
See, I think there's only one way that you can not ever get tired of that, and that's having people to know Jesus as their personal life, and we're all going to have to spend eternity someplace, and to know that you're changing lives because with God's word excites you, and that why would you not do better? Is there other people that need to know about Christ? How is it? What other things would drive you to always be better other than something that makes a difference for eternity? I don't know that there's anything else. More money? Well, how many cars can you drive? How many houses can you own? I know you can own more, but that's just a bigger problem.
Yeah.
And I have 4 cars, and that's more cars than I want, so why do you want more money? What does that, is that going to make you happy? The people that have the most money are usually the most miserable, but having a purpose for what you do. We have a purpose for what we do, and that drives you. You never can do enough in telling billions of people about Jesus, and that's why we do what we do. That's why we don't get tired, and I don't know of anything else that would cause you never to get tired of what you're doing, because at some point more money just doesn't help you at all in terms of your fulfillment or your happiness.
Has that been a struggle as a leader to get that across to your leadership team, your employees, your new employee that's coming in that, well, here's a Hobby Lobby because they pay great and have great benefits, and how do you do that in a way? Because no one's going to work as hard as you, right? No one ever generally works as hard as the CEO because of the passion that you have. How do you get that across? And how has that evolved over time?
We have a letter that goes out, a newsletter that goes out, and it tells everybody, the 50,000 people, they have a copy of that, and they know why we do what we do. And we just think that people understand at some point who we are and why we do what we do. When you're closed on Sundays, which was the busiest day per hour, and you walk away from that, and when you sue the government because they tell you you're going to take the life of a child, and they see you're not going to do it under any circumstance, hopefully that you're living a life that they see something different. They see someone there's more important things than us just making a ton of money. And they see where our money's going. They see the ministries we're involved. Hopefully, I think we have a lot of people, by the way. I think we have the best group out there because they know who we are. People know who Hobby Lobby is, and they want to come to a company that love the Lord and that are Christians. And by the way, we're not perfect by any means, but at least we do have a set of standards that we try to live by, and that's God's Word.
Yeah.
And that's why we love God's Word, and that's why we were involved in having a museum in Washington, D.C. Of this is what we want and try to live by.
Yeah.
And we always say, as I said even earlier, that there's only 2 things that's eternal, and that's God's word and man. So that's what drives us, is those 2 things.
Back to childhood, Dad's pastor, growing up, and your other siblings have gone on into that world as well. When you're growing up and you're so, your life is in the church, like that's home for you, right? You're growing up, you're bouncing around, it is consuming you. There is definitely cases in history where, as a son or as a child, you repel from what your parents tell you, right? You don't want to do that. You want to go doing your own thing. What keeps you and what drives you as far as being so devoted to your faith and your passion and your love for bringing people to Christ that at a young age, I wouldn't say it's uncommon to have it for so long, but we're not perfect, right? We all go through ups and downs, and we might leave a little bit. Like, how does that, when you're a young age, transform you and keep you focused and passionate that long to now? Is there examples along the way? Was there an example when you were young? Because, like I was saying, sometimes something happens and you're like, I want to go and trust my own gut on this one, and you get away from it, and then you get a wake-up call, right? Or you get a light bulb moment. But
yeah, I would say that I was a pretty bad preacher's son, so I can't say that I live my life the way I should all the time, because sometimes I tell a story about in school. I remember when I was I don't know, we might have been in 5th or 6th grade that there was some kid that had a bike. I always thought in school there was this, what do you call it, a food chain kind of a thing? And I was at the very bottom.
Packing order?
Yeah. I was at the very, very bottom. And I remember this kid had a bike, and so he was one above me because he had a bike and I didn't have one. And so on the way to walking home, this kid would just pester me and just call me names and just riding the bike, and I'm walking. And I'm a preacher's son, but I forget that for a while, and I just pull him off the bike and beat him up. And so that was bad for me because I knew I was pretty wiry, and I could whip about anybody. And then I don't know, a year or two later, I was taking band, and some aunt sent me a clarinet, and I could only make it squeak. And in band, you would have first chair, second chair. You would try out. I was last chair. There was like 5 or 6 girls ahead of me that were ahead of me, and I was last chair.
Yeah.
And then there was this kid that was first chair trumpet player, and I didn't like him because he always had creases in his pants, and he had a big ring, and he come from a wealthy family, and he was first chair. Now, why would a last chair clarinet player that could only make that thing squeak not like a first chair trumpet player, No, in my mind that I don't care as I'm preacher's son. I don't like this kid, So anyway, I pick a fight on him. He knocks me out. I mean, just knocks me out cold. So I was working up the food chain, and I was almost at the top, but then I fell back to the bottom when he knocked me out. So that was the end of my fighting days.
Yeah.
So your question has more to do with, hey, I have a lot of times that I've just, in my life, that I'm just not proud of. So I would say that my life has been, like most of us, has been hopefully moving in the right direction. And so that's what we want. And you find out in life that if you study it at all, what's it all about? Getting more? Just getting more is going to make me happy. And I don't think that. I think you get that figured out pretty soon.
Yeah.
So what is important? I think there is nothing more important. And so I think we're committed to things that's most important. And by the way, when you play a tuba, they're owned by the stores. And so I became tuba player, and there was 3 of us, and within a year and a half, I was first chair tuba player. So if it takes a lot of air and a lot of wind, I can be first chair.
Yeah.
But I went from last chair clarinet to first chair, and I was in a little jazz band, and so the tuba was my interest. We just have to find the right instrument for us, I guess, but the clarinet wasn't mine.
Yeah. It's a great life metaphor there too, right?
Yeah.
Find the right instrument.
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me that tubas are owned by the store because they're not cheap.
No, they're not. So that's why I got to play the tuba, because the school owned it.
Yeah. Do you still play any instruments today?
No, I don't.
No?
Yeah.
Do the kids play any?
I've got a lot of kids and grandkids. I think it's 23 great grandkids, and it's amazing how talented some of them are. One of my granddaughters, she's a great granddaughter, she's just now 16, and she's going to produce a record here pretty soon. So she's very, very inclined to music. So we're proud of all of our kids.
Tell me about your jazz band. How does that come about?
Well, it came about by me getting a tuba player, and there was a little jazz band that would play at parties or something like that. And so because I became first chair, the instructor was the tuba. He played the trumpet, so he was part of the jazz band. So there was 5 or 6 of us, and there would be different parties around, and I would be part of that, and with the tuba.
Is jazz still your music genre of choice if you're listening in the car?
I played jazz because I was good at the tuba player, because, I always said, when a guy is directing, they have 2 hands. And I said one hand was just to kind of keep me down, because, when you're a tuba player, it was really fun, because you would get these runs like boom, 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 and I could just, everybody, I didn't care if it what it said, double P or whatever. I went for it, just like crazy. So I wasn't very disciplined when I was in school. I got into a lot of trouble because I was not very disciplined.
Yeah.
That's not good.
You find your passion in merchandising. You realize that is what you want to do for the rest of your life, and you want to go. And you weren't getting is it McClellan's? Is that how McClellan's?
Man,
Okay.
Altus,
Yeah, so you weren't getting the growth that you were looking for there, so you decided to apply for a TJ&Y position and end up in Shawnee, Oklahoma.
Right, because McClellan's wasn't growing that. They were out of New York. They weren't growing, and I was looking to grow within a company. And McClellan's, I mean, TJ&Y before Walmart, they were the retailer, and they didn't become the retailer because of their own fault. There was no reason they shouldn't have been, but they people asked me what was wrong. I said, well, I could probably write a book, but at the same time, I enjoyed it while I was there, and they were opening a lot of stores, so that was the company to go to. Is where I thought that I could progress, because for me, from my background, to be a store manager would be the top of the world. I didn't even think past that. I didn't think about what God has given us today. I was just. And your life is a progress of time that, I'm a kid. I'm not a good preacher's kid. Then you go into where your main thing is just trying to make a living for your family. So there's a process of time and what you're thinking about. But as you get a little bit older, you say, hey, what's the purpose? And God has created all of us for a purpose. Yeah. We all have a purpose. And I think it's more than just accumulating. And so we hope we found his purpose for our lives.
Yeah. So that at that time in your life, you're newly married, you're in Shawnee, you're assistant store manager, you spend 6 months there, you become a store manager, the kid's on the way, the goal is to provide for my family, right. I have a salary, which is amazing. I didn't expect, that's what you're looking for, and that is, you're at peace. You go to church, and that is your life.
Yeah, I don't know that there was that much out of that. I mean, much more than that. I want to grow in the company because I got an old car and I want a little better car. And it was, I think, what most of us think about. We're not thinking past that. So my life is a process, like I think most of ours. I think what's more important to me today is different than when I've got 3 kids and I've got a car that doesn't run too good. I can do better by having a larger store, things of this nature. That would be more what was on my mind. I was a Christian. I go to church every Sunday, and we've always done that as a family. But I'm not that proud of when I was a teenager because I wasn't.
When you're in that, when your life has direction, you're during that time, you're a father, you're in a company where you can progress. What is it that goes off in your head to think, we can start our own here instead of deciding to continue up the food chain at TJ&Y?
When I was in Oklahoma here, I was with TJ&Y at 23rd. I mean, at May and Britton Road. There was a big store there. It was probably about the 13th family center, because they went from dime stores to family centers. So I got one of the first family centers. So it was a big store. It was about 80,000 square feet. And in that store, one of the reasons TJ&Y is not around is because they let you do whatever you wanted to do. I remember when I got my first store, they would send a sheet and you would buy your fall merchandise and you're on your own. And they may have, like, for instance, 6 different children's pajamas. And they said, help me, Well, I don't know your neighborhood. Oh, I do. I just become a manager of this store. I know my neighborhood. So that was one of the things they did wrong. And they gave too much freedom to them because you know more than I know. No, I don't. So we're very controlled. We super controlled, and I learned from them that you can't do that. And so that was kind of the thing that happened at my store at May and Britton Road, TJ&Y, is I put put together because I was able to, a pet department that had 13 people in a pet department and a five and dime. 13 people. I mean, every kind of fish. I had all kinds of fish tanks, coatimundi. Don't even ask me what it is, but I would have all kinds of exotic birds, and because they let you do that.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I can build a department, and I had a guy named John Seward that ran the department.
Mm.
And so I said, I can do this same thing in crafts, because we had a little old craft department. And I said, I did it here. Yeah. And I had the zoo after me because I must have been getting more attention than them, but I know they were after me. Maybe it's because of the way I was treating the birds. I don't know. Yeah. I was probably not very good at that. But I remember saying, I can do this in crafts. Mm-hmm. And so, but you don't have any money. How do you go out and get a store? So that's when we said, well, we got to go out and get some money. So it's kind of a means to an end.
Sure.
So the means to an end was, well, let's go out and make some little frames, and my sons were 7 and 9, and they'd glue them together. And we had a guy that would work on commission that would go out to all these craft stores and sell these little craft stores, our frames, little frames that we made. And so that we borrowing $600, which we borrowed, we made little frames and sold them to the crafts company. Yeah. When I started in 1970, there were thousands and thousands of little craft stores, mom and pop crafts, and there were no chains at all. And that's where we started. So we would sell these little frames to these craft stores, and then after a while we said, oh, we got enough money to open a store. So I think it was on 20 Robinson. We put our little first store in, and it was 600 square feet. And so we put a little bit of crafts in there, a little bit of art in there, and that was our first tour in 1972. Okay. 2 years after we started. 70 was making frames in our garage, gluing them together.
While working at TG&Y?
While working at TG&Y. Yeah. And so my wife worked from 70 to 75 without any pay, and my two boys would glue the frames together, and we would sell, and any money that we made, we would put it into that little craft store that was 600 square feet. Mm-hmm. And in 1975, I quit to open up the second store in 1975. I was earning, I think it was $25,000 a year in 1975, and I came over for 13. Yeah. So we did a lot of just whatever it takes to get where we need to go.
Yeah, I did some math. $600 loan in today's world is about $4,600.
Yeah.
So it's a good amount of money, but it's not a lot of money, right?
Not to start a company.
Not to start a company. And then my other question too is, the family background that you have, mom and dad, pastors, travel around, the entrepreneurial spirit in you, I'm interested in where that comes from, but I'm also interested in where Barbara's entrepreneurial spirit comes and the faith that she has in her passion as well, but also her love for you.
Yeah, and sometimes I just tell people Hobby Lobby, and sometimes when I speak, I said Hobby Lobby would not exist without Barbara, period. Because she took it 5 years without any pay, and after 5 years I came over. But she had it by herself, shipping these frames to these little stores, being in charge of that. And there was one particular time that we had a fellow that was blind that wanted to work for us, and so he would cut these frames with these blades, and he took everything off that was the guides, not the guides, but protection. It scared us to death, and I don't tell this too often because it doesn't sound too good, but sometimes people said, it looks like a blind person made these frames. Well, sorry, but anyway, we didn't do too good. I mean, we had a lot of problems in getting started. We weren't the best at making frames, but that was, I just give Barbara the reason that she wasn't born entrepreneur. She was born by great parents that were very, very instrumental in their local churches. and they were always faithful to their church, and that was who she was. She was a Baptist, and sometimes I say, I've been trying to get her saved again, and she refuses, and she tries. She's glad that I get saved every Sunday night, every Sunday morning. But anyway, that's her background. But she is the reason that Hobby Lobby is here today, is because getting it started is the hard thing without any money, and you don't have a lot of money when you have $600. But it was tough, and I remember many times we would say, we're doing good at TGNY, we make good salary. Why don't we just forget this and walk past it?
Yeah.
But I don't know why we did, but I think the reason why we did it, it was God's plan for our life, but it was not like easy to get it off of the ground. And then, okay, once you get about 1,000 stores, it becomes a little bit easier, And and I say that if you don't have it under control, and that is because you have a lot of great people, that we don't really have any big problems. We have zero debt. We have a line of credit buying our Christmas, and then we have nothing in December like right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and in some of the research I've done, Penn Square turned you down for the second loan for $1,000.
$1,000. We borrowed $600 at Penn Square, and I often say, they should have loaned that to us. It would have been their own good loan, because they went under because they were giving Ollie's tens of millions of dollars, and they kind of bit the dirt. So they should have loaned me that $1,000, because I said at least they had at least one good loan. Yeah. But anyway, that's kind of a joke.
One of the other things that came up in some of my research is the word courageous and being courageous, and back to what you said about bettering yourself, and you have to take a risk, and you have to believe in yourself, and you have to put yourself out there to get to the next milestone, to grow. You're clearly very good at what you do to get to where we're at today with no debt, 1,000+ stores, and the company that you have. What are the times when you were courageous that you were tested because you were courageous, because it didn't work out and you had to really knuckle down, and because it isn't, you've gone through some tough times to be here today.
Sure. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I like to say too sometimes is I don't like to take too big of gambles. I like to, when you borrow $600, I got to pay it back. So that's starting a company. Yeah. I don't like to take a lot of huge risk. So I think you need to be somewhat measured in that. And I'm using the word somewhat because there are times that you just have to make decisions. And probably one of the most courageous is when we decided we're not going to take the life of a baby. We would give this company up before we would do that. So and then closing on Sundays. When we closed on Sundays, it was a pretty big deal, Because some people would say, well, if you're going to do that, that's what God wants. And I tell people on Sundays, that's between you and God. For us, we knew that we were supposed to do that. And so that was a big risk. And sometimes you say, well, God's going to bless you. When we closed on Sunday, people say that, well, there was less sales for about 18 months because I wasn't courageous enough to just close them all. I took one little state at a time, then another one. I started with one that had one or two stores, and I ended up with Texas that had 50 or 60. So I took my time, and I would say that was just saying, I think God blesses, I know God blesses us when we're trying to follow what he would have us to do, And sometimes what he would have us to do looks like, through a man's eyes and through a business eyes, that it's not the right thing to do, but it is the right thing to do. So a lot of things we've done, it looks like immediately it costs. It cost us a lot. A lot of people stop shopping us because of our beliefs. We have people today that will not shop Hobby Lobby. So I think God blesses us, and we're a very blessed company because we try to do what we think is right. And that can be costly sometimes, but I think we're going to do it regardless. If we think that it's not what we're supposed to do, we're not going to do it. Yeah. And I think that's why I think God blesses our company so much, is because we try to do it based on his word.
Yeah. It's there's not many people in the world that have put all their chips on the table and said, we're taking this to the top because this is how we believe. And the amount of, I know you mentioned, you lose customers and you lose people who won't shop here, but the reverse of that is it's strengthening everybody that believes the same things that you guys do in the company you built here and all your employees.
We had people tell us, no, you got to go ahead and pay these people to have pay for their medicines, to not to take life, and because you have too big of a ministry. And I'm thinking, I'm supposed to do something wrong to do something right? Yeah. I don't think so. So that's kind of, no. Mm-hmm. We don't ever have to do something wrong to do something right. Mm-hmm. Even though what we're doing right may be pretty substantial, and this seems like a little thing, and it's not a little thing. Taking the life of a child isn't a little thing, but some people see it that way. Okay. And we had people that are pretty, reasonably, that are Christians that basically said, you need to just follow the government so it doesn't mess up your ministry. So that's where I think we just have to do the best of our ability to do what we know is right.
Yeah. Over, you mentioned closing on Sundays and, giving up $200+ million in revenue because you guys close on Sundays, eventually getting to that. And the title of one of your books, is giving it all away and then getting it all back, to that effect. What was when you mentioned getting it all back, in what terms do you get it all back, and how do you explain that to others who are in business who would like to donate, give away? And a previous podcast guest from Oklahoma last year pledged 50% of her profits to give away as well, which is similar to what you guys do. And she mentioned the same thing. She's big in her faith, and her example was that she decided to do that and then prayed about it, and out of nowhere they get a client that signs a huge contract and sign. But sometimes you don't get a sign, and then when you have more stores and a lot of employees, it's more risk versus like you said, taking gambles. How do you explain that? How does that come about from your
I don't
perspective?
think you're talking about us because there's a lot of money and it's a big business, but I think I don't care in your life. I don't care how small or how big it is. It's the same.
Okay.
For me, it's the same. And the same is, I feel like you're going to be more blessed in your life when you follow God's Bible, God's word. You're going to be more blessed. Now, more blessed may not mean more money. It may be something different, So I think it's never right to do what's wrong, period. Yeah. And you're going to be better off in your life. Yeah. Just do what's right, regardless of what it looks like on a piece of paper. Just do what's right. And so that's what we try to do. And by the way, for us, it has been just a very, very successful company. And by the way, we've been 50% for the last 25 years, and we just went to 60. Yeah. We give 60%. And that's because the government will let you write off 60% of what you make, and you pay no taxes on it.
Okay.
So we make X amount, and the government doesn't get anything on 60 of it because that's written off. They only get their percentage on 40% that's left. And so we're just able to do that. So we started this year and probably will stay with 60.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, overseas and manufacturing and products and you're traveling all over the world and you're sourcing all of these items to be in your stores. But the vehicle that is for you to spread your ministry around the world, how has that been as far as spreading your ministry and spreading the word of Jesus Christ around the world through your own vehicle? Because there are some religions in some other countries and people with different worldviews and all of that, right? Like there's loads of different views around the world, but you guys are out and you're buying products and producing products. How have you used that vehicle to spread the gospel?
I think what we try to do is we try to be as profitable as we can be in a way that's has a lot of integrity, period. So that's what we're here for, is to make as much money as we can to tell as many people about Christ. So as far as business, we just see it as we're out there and we're buying from everybody all over the world that's not Christians, and China and all sorts of stuff, but we wanted to go back and use what we earned to go back. For instance, sometimes people oh, you're buying from China, you shouldn't be doing that because of, they're communist or whatever, But we've been able to go to over 1 million homes in China with God's word. A billion homes in China over the last 25 years. So 25 years ago, approximately, I'm not real good on exact dates, but my Mart writes everything down, and he's got it down to the day. But we started, and I think God started us in 2 ministries that we're still involved with 25 years later, and that's One Hope in Every Home for Christ. One Hope is children, and we've been able to give 1.5 billion children around the world God's word in over 100 countries, and we've been able to go to hundreds of countries, or 100 plus, with the gospel with Every Home for Christ. So they're actually putting God's word into every single home. So that's why we do what we do. That's why we go buy all this stuff from wherever. Wherever we can make the most money. We might be buying it from atheists. We don't know who we're buying it from. But the purpose is to make money, the purpose of making money is, first, we think we need to take care of the people that got us there, and that's our employees. We want to do as good or better than anybody in our industry. That's what we would like to do, and that's what we try to do. But then the profits we made just this year, we've been 50 for 25 years, and now we said, hey, the government says you can give 60, so let's go for it. And so that's what we're doing now.
What led to that decision 25 years ago?
25 years ago, I think, God sometimes just tests us, I remember when we made the mistake of saying you can't outgive God, because that's a mistake, because God's going to say, well, have you tried? And that's what God's saying to me. It's so cute. You can't outgive God, God said, well, have you tried? And I don't know, at the time we were given 20% or something. I don't know what we were given. So now God's saying to me, and that's why I don't say that. If you just don't say it, because it'll get you in trouble.
Don't challenge.
So God says, well, have you tried? And how do you know that's right? You haven't tried. I said, okay. So I said, family, God's telling us that we've got to try to outgive him. I took it to the family. I said, because God has spoken to me that he's challenged me because I said something, and he's just asking me, it's a good question to ask somebody that says you can't outgive God. Well, then, what have you done to try to see if you can outgive God? So I said, we're supposed to outgive God. And I don't know how to do it. I've never heard a sermon in my life. I'm going to get up and this is how you outgive God. I don't know how to do it. So I said, fine, guys, we got to figure it out, how to outgive God. And so we prayed about it and thought about it. And I remember Mart and I came up with the same thing. I mean, God was a God thing because there's probably 1,000 different ways. So if I ask you how to outgive God, I don't say, oh, this is the way you do it. I said, well, what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to, I'm trying to think of how we did that because a few years ago. Oh, we're supposed to give an amount we never gave before, just an amount that we've never given before. Just give it. And by the way, 6 months later, add that same amount. And 6 months, add that same amount. 6 months, add the same amount. 6 months, add this. Now, I didn't say double it. You double it the first time, but I didn't say double it every year, but add that same amount. So we gave the largest amount we ever gave in our life, the largest amount. 6 months later, we added the same number, then we added it. And we said, okay, we're going to try this. And then we looked at ourselves and we said, in about 7 or 8 years, that's 100% of ourselves. This ain't going to work, but we're trying. We said it, so we're going to say, okay, can you outgive God? And we look back on it, and it's been 25 years ago, and we're ahead of schedule. We're ahead of that schedule now. So God has done exactly what we've said, that you can't outgive him. I also believe that it's real important to give for the right reasons. Sometimes you hear some of these guys on TV that they need you to send them a whole bunch of money, and I think they're in it. I don't think their motivation's right. Sometimes, not always. That God's going to bless you. I'm not a theologian, but I'm not really sure God's going to bless you to get money. I think you give to give.
Mhm.
You know, I want to give more so I can give more.
Yeah.
So I can give more because I've got a heart for the lost. I think we need to have a heart for the lost. You know, everybody's going to spend eternity someplace.
Yeah.
And I want to tell as many people as I can about the person that loves them, died for them. And that's what really I want to do. And that's what our family wants to do.
When you talk about bringing the family meeting together, is that something, and you talk about, building this for eternity and it's for going to outlive, you and family, and that's also what helps you make decisions for the long term, not the short term. How do you keep, your family's growing? You mentioned you have 20 plus grandkids, right? Great grandkids. And how do you keep that mentality within the family? How do you keep everybody focused? Because if it happens, people get strayed away, right? There's little, you get tested, whatever it is. And generally, when you look at the fall of big companies or families, it's usually around money, unfortunately. How do you, as a family, do you have a yearly meeting? How does that work for you? And how have you found success in building that consistency through your family and that passion?
By the way, we do have a yearly meeting, and we just have it. It's the first Saturday of every January. And so everybody that's 16 years old are there.
Okay.
But they're there as this is who we are as a family. So we have come together what our mission, vision, and values are.
Okay.
So we got to document this is our mission, this is our vision, and this is our value. But you have to remember, and we remember, that God calls us all for maybe a different purpose. So he hasn't called everybody into Hobby Lobby. So if this is your calling, this is where you need to be. Everybody, by the way, is welcomed in the family to come to Hobby Lobby. But we have them that's interested in this, interested in that, and that. So once a month we get together and we talk about where our giving is, okay? And so that's what we do as a family. And the ones that decide on that is the one that earned the money, not the ones that didn't earn the money. You make a certain salary. Well, let me tell you where to. That doesn't work. So we think it's right to say we've got. There's just a handful of us that are Hobby Lobby. A lot of the grandkids, and we just say, you know what you need to do, what God tells you to do. We're not responsible for that. God has got a calling and a purpose for your life, and we want to support you in that. So we have a meeting that comes once a month and we decide where we're going to give. But that's really, really hard to do because, and we're working on it because I think differently than when I had one or two little stores that were doing a few thousand a year. You have to always start with a clean sheet of paper. No, here's how much we're going to give this next year. So it's different than what we were here. So all of a sudden, we have to decide where God would have us put our money. But it may be, for instance, it may be in 30 ministries and not 130. Because in the United States, there's 1.8 million 501(c)(3)s, 1.8, and most of them are good.
Yeah.
But we want two things in our family. We want to have a larger and great. Not good. Great is telling people about Jesus. Good is curing cancer. That's a good thing. And if you want to put your money there, fine. We don't. We want to put our money to where we're telling people and we're changing their eternity, not making their life here on earth. It's nothing but a vapor a little bit longer. Yeah. That's good. Thank God for those people. But we want to do great things, and it's going to be eternal. So we sit down and say, how do you give the money away that God has given us? And so that's a big thing and we're still working on moving from where we were to where we need to be because it keeps moving. But it usually would move into something larger. Like, for instance, we're involved in the Creation Museum. We're involved in the Bible Museum. We're involved in telling every child about Jesus, on and on. There's a lot of different ministries we're involved with. It's pretty substantial. Yeah. But at some point, you just have to move away from the 1.8 million 501(c)(3)s. Yeah. And in Oklahoma, there's over 2,000. So how do you do that? I think it's trying to find out where God's going, not where you want to go, but where God's going. Unless God tells you to do something. Because sometimes he tells us to do something that really doesn't look good. We are you is one of those things. It didn't look good, but we knew that was what God would want us to do. But most of the things that we're involved, we feel like God is guiding us in that, because ask the Lord. The big signs out there. One of them is ask the Lord for direction. God, help us. This isn't our money. Now that's one of the things our family has gotten. They're okay with. It's not ours. Now we're there 100%. It's not there. The Bible says in Psalms 24:1, he said, the whole world's his and everything in it. He owns everything, not tithe. He owns everything.
Yeah.
And so I think we have a family that knows that. But we come together and we're challenged. Now, you gave us this, Lord. Where would you have us to put it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're not challenged in a negative way, but we're also challenged in the 1.8 million and the 200,000, where are they? And generally they're going into things where God is doing something that's in our eye seems to be of a larger ministry.
Yeah. I'm sure it can be difficult, right? But like you said, when the entire family is on board with it's not it's not ours, it's his, and we're stewards of that, and doing great things with that, then everyone is aligned.
Yeah. We don't have any trouble that we don't own it.
Yeah.
But our challenge sometimes, because you have different thoughts, is where should this money go? But I know that we're drilling down a little bit on it, because people are realizing that you can't do 2,000 things in Oklahoma that are good. And so we got to find out where God is. We're trying to follow where God is and where he's going. Now and then he'll throw us something that doesn't look good, and we have to get involved and help change it a little bit.
Yeah. Which is, like you mentioned, the
The
example.
ORU was not going. It was going.
Yeah.
It wasn't going in the right direction. So we just knew that was what God would have us to do. And now, by the way, there's good leadership. Have nothing to. I mean, we're out of it.
Yeah. Talking about, you mentioned the Museum of the Bible that's in DC. Where does that idea stem from? And then also, had you already been kind of preserving artifacts for yourself before this happens and have a museum? Like, where does that progression happen to then having this facility?
Well, my son, who's in charge of it, Steve, says God tricked us, I think. And so, okay, maybe that's not the right word, but somehow we had no idea that we were going to be involved in it. We had a chance to get, because we had someone that wanted to put a big museum in Dallas, and they wanted us to buy this building. I said, well, how much money you have? You have no building, you have no artifacts, you have nothing. And they're coming to us, and we said, I don't think so. But somehow or another, it stirred up a little interest in us, and we would find somebody here that had some artifacts, and then this person had some artifacts. And so we found ourselves trying to, hey, let's acquire them, and someone's going to do this, but it's not going to be us, But somehow or another, it ended up being us, and so God has helped and led us in that. So we feel like that we have a world class. And by the way, if you want to write a book on it, we can write a book on a lot of mistakes we made. So by the way, we made a lot of mistakes at Hobby Lobby and still do. Yeah. So if you're not going to make any mistakes, you're probably not going to do anything. I mean, okay, we see that we did this wrong and we did this wrong. And so, but in the meantime, we've tried to correct them all and get them straightened out.
Yeah. And that whole that with the museum and the artifacts is pure, it's a museum, it's preserving history, it's preserving everything for the eternity, and to stay there, and DC seems like the right place for it.
Well, that was another thing. We said we did a study on where should we put it. We wanted to put it in Dallas because it's pretty close. But we did a study, and we found out that DC on the study would bring more people in than any place else. Yeah. So the study we did, and we studied several cities, and it was the one that seemed like there was the right one.
Yeah. Looking back over 84 years old, looking back over your 84 years, would you say that you're proud of what you've done, or would you say that I still have more left to do? There's still more, and you have a little bit of, I don't do enough in me.
No, I would say that I don't know none of us know how long God has us here, and as far as my past, I've had a lot of times I would have did different than I did in my younger days, but even today, I don't know that I get everything as like I should, but I want to. But I just, my goal is for the future, because one of the things I tell my people, and it doesn't sound real good, I just say, if I need you, I don't need you. If I need you, I don't need you. Don't have a gun in my head and this thing doesn't go. We just had 2 people retire from this company that had over 40 years that were very, very instrumental of us being here. So on one hand, I give them kudos for getting us to where we are. And the other thing, I said, when they're gone, there wasn't a ripple. And that's the way it ought to be. And that's the way I want it to be when I'm not here. I don't want there to be a ripple. So I think I have to, because why is it, if it's important for people to know God and to tell as many people as we can about Jesus, why is it that when I'm not here, it doesn't happen? Now, that doesn't seem right. So I think we're trying to build a company, and I've always tried to build a company to where that if you're not here, everything's fine. And so that takes a lot of people's egos away from them. You can't do it without me. I don't want that. I don't need you. I want you to tell me, hey, when I'm not here, and I know that we left 2 guys that helped build this company that's 40 years, and we do just as fine without them. And they're going to do just as fine without me. Mm-hmm. So it's important for me that I'm not here, that people still are going to know about Jesus because of Hobby Lobby. So that's my desire, and I think that's what we're trying to put in place.
Yeah. This is kind of a similar question and for what you answered, but curious to see if there's anything else that makes sense. But when people talk about Hobby Lobby and they talk about yourself in 50 years, what do you hope they see mattered the most about how you built Hobby Lobby, not just what you built?
Yeah, I think I would hope that they would say that we built it with integrity, as imperfect people, and I certainly don't want to put myself in that area. But we did it there's not a better reason we built it for. There isn't a better reason. We didn't build. I love our people, and I want to take care of our people, and I think we have a responsibility. But I don't want to hire 50,000 people and not have something more than just hiring 50,000 people, because that's simply vapor. It's going to be a short time relative to the eternity. But we built this for a reason bigger than them, and that we care about them, should care about them, but there's a reason that we built this company, and for people to understand the real reason that we wanted to have more than 1,100 stores. We wanted 1,200, we wanted 1,300. And it's not obviously for I to gain anything, but also it is to have positions for people. We want to grow for them because they want to grow, but they can grow and also love the Lord and have the same desires we have, and that is to tell people about Jesus.
Yeah. Quick fun questions finishing up. What are you researching right now? What are you Googling? What's on the mind right now as far as day to day?
I am really, really terrible at the phone. I mean, I didn't carry one. I didn't have one. Yeah. Because of my wife, I need to have a phone. Yeah. And so I run this business that will do $8 billion this year off of this right here. This is what I run it by. But this right here, I just hate this thing. So I've got an iPhone. I only had that because I need to be available for my wife.
Yeah.
But to show you, those are my apps.
Okay.
There's 8.
Hobby Lobby, the Bible app.
And
weather and messages.
And I'm trying to figure out how to get some of them off, but I haven't done it.
Some of them, the iPhone won't let you get rid of the others.
I am not a techie guy, but I have great techie people, and I need them. But I have just fallen behind.
Yeah.
And so so I depend on this more than anything. That is every one of my kids and grandkids and great grandkids right there. Okay. And the next place is this is all on my buyers and their help. And this is all the restaurants that we go to. So if I don't know where to eat, I just, let's see, where do we want to go? Texas Steakhouse or Cheddar's?
Yeah.
And then I have some scriptures in here, and I have one that I just say, if there's a scripture that I would like to be, it's in 1 Timothy 2:7 in the Message version. It says, "This and only this has been my appointed work. This and only this has been my appointed work. Getting this news to those who have never heard of God and explaining how it works by simple faith and plain truth." And then I signed it. I signed my name. That's who and what I want to be. So that's what's important to me is this little thing right here.
How long have you had that?
I've had this for 30 years. So my daughter goes and buys art overseas, and she comes back, and she doesn't know how to, what she paid for it. She bought it, I think, in England, and she doesn't know how to translate.
Yeah.
Dad, that costs $30 or something like that. That's Darsee. I think See, and there it is. She writes on there. It says the boss, DMG, and then there's her love notes.
Oh, that's great.
So I've had and I've kept them all. I've got, I don't know. It takes 2 years, and then I transfer it over. Now that's a lot of work that you don't have to do here, but I'm behind times on technology, and I'm not. It's too late to change.
Do you have any numbers that you check daily as far as the business was static? What are you checking daily?
Yeah. For instance, I check that every day. That's my sales.
Yeah.
And so far this year, we're up 31%. I don't know why it's up 31%.
Yeah.
But
just across the board over all the stores.
Yeah, and that has every department. It tells you every department what the sales was, how much increase, decrease. Yeah. It tells you everything you want to know right there. So I have I have everything I want.
Yeah.
Too much information is harmful. So I have what I want. Yeah. So I need to know, and I have the sales. I don't get it every day. I get it every week. Yeah. It's too much information every day. So every week, Sunday morning, the first thing I do when I get out of bed is I look at this, and so that's what I do.
Yeah.
I don't recommend anybody do what I do. I don't recommend it. It's just I've always operated this. I've never even had a phone other than in my car until about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Which I need the phone now to try to help my wife as much as I can. But I operate with this.
Yeah.
And then I make little notes right there. And sometimes it makes me mad because I only have 4 words, and I say, what in the world? What in the world did I mean by that?
Yeah.
I know it's important, but, so I study and study. Then when I get through, sometimes I'll move one from one side to the other, but I put a big X on it, when I've done it. So, but I don't recommend this for anybody. But when you get started and it works, and every phone number that I need's here, every kid. So everything you need to know is here. Now, most people have it on this thing right here, but this thing goes down, and you have to charge it. And you got all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
And there's too much information. Anything you want to know is on there, and that's just too much information. I just want this much.
Yeah.
I can run this company with a lot less information.
Mm-hmm. The key,
and that's what I put out on the board. Too much information is harmful.
Yeah. And for people listening, like, you have a great automated system for everything. There's trucks leaving, but you're loading 40 trucks, maybe more at once.
Right.
There is technology within Hobby Lobby that is running the distribution side and everything, but for what you have.
No, I have a technology department that's really, really good, and I think we have the technology. For instance, you go to our register, and it's not it's not automatic. It's now they're wanting to change it.
Yeah.
And I say every decision that's made in Hobby Lobby I've been a part of, but that's one that I say, you know what, I'm going to let you guys do it, but don't mess it up, because you can really mess things up.
Yeah.
For instance, if you have POS, every item you have to have a little ticket of how much it is, so the customer knows, because it's not marked. Everything in Hobby Lobby is marked. It has a price on it.
Yeah.
I said, now I'm not going to go out and buy 1 million new shelves that's got this little deal where you
Yeah.
put the price on there. This is 79 cents.
Yeah.
There is none of that. So our system, if they go to it, has to still have the price on the item. Still has to have
The
a
sticker.
sticker
on it.
that says this is how much it is.
Yeah.
So I could talk all day about POS, where you just zip it at the register, and customers hate it because it takes longer, and
It's fine.
it works.
And one of the key things that stood out in one of the interviews I listened to is that people come to your store because it's a joyous experience, right? They're getting things that they're not getting anything that they need. They're getting things that they want to go buy, which it helps with them waiting a little bit longer at the register.
Yeah, we had one guy come to the store. My wife remembers since I've never seen a store in my life that had so much that no one needs, and basically you don't need anything we have. And so that's where God put us, and we love it.
Yeah. Again, thank you so much for your time. I know I could
You're
sit
welcome.
here and pick your brain for hours. Congratulations on everything you've done.
God's good.
Congratulations on raising an incredible family and 50,000 plus employees. Oklahoma is better because you're here.
Well,
And I've seen-
Oklahoma's been good to us, and I think about where God has led us and where He's been. And if I had to start Hobby Lobby today, I'd start it in Oklahoma. So you got the East Coast, the West Coast. We're right in the middle, and we have over 250 trailers that leads here every day. With 1,100 stores, and this is where we want to be. So we wouldn't be any place else. You'd say, well, go up further north. Well, there's not as much population as there's south. That we'd be right here if we started this business. And so I said, how'd that happen? Well, God goes before us. If you really think about it much, that we know that He's been with us. And I think He'll always be with us if we're with Him. And we're with Him when, no matter what the cost is, we're going to try to do our best to do what we find in God's Word.
Yeah. People listening, you have a lot of books out there. You like to put books out. You like to educate and share. That's your medium to share the information that you have. And there's some great stories out there across all areas of business and life. And so for people listening, go check out those books. The recent one came out last year.
Right.
Are you writing one now for the next one?
No.
Okay.
I can't write a book. I'll just tell everybody, but I do have someone that always helps me.
Is that Bill?
We sit down and talk like you and I are talking
Yeah.
today, and then he takes it and he runs with it. So I thank God for that, because I didn't go to school long enough to write a book. But anyway, he helps me, and I can tell you shouldn't write a book that says give it all away, because a lot of people don't want to give it away. So sometimes your title is real important, but that book didn't do as good as we thought, because But that's what I say, but I don't know.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. People listening, we'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHOF. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my 2 golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too, but I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC, and hopefully our pups will run into each other.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.